Parak Yud Gimel, Pasuk, what did I say? Yud Gimel Lamed Beis. It's about 8 lines from the top. This is where they come back. They're having the debate with Moshe and the rest of the people. And it says, "Vayotziu dibas ha'aretz asher toru osa el bnei Yisrael leimar." They spread a bad report about the land, and they said, "Ha'aretz asher avarnu v'alosur osa," the land which we passed in, Eretz ocheles yoshveahi. It's a land that consumes its inhabitants. V'chol ha'am asher reinu v'socha anshe midos. The people are men of stature, anshe midos, that they're a height. Now, people of a height, we said, Rashi says that when you see a tall person, you immediately think to yourself, gee, I wonder how tall he is. Anshe midos. But we also know that the word midos refers to character traits. And we had mentioned that the reason a character trait is called a midah, because a midah is a measure. And you have to know how much, you have to be a humble person, but sometimes you have to stand up, and for what count, you can't be too humble. Sometimes you have to stand up and be counted. You shouldn't be haughty. Sometimes you have to take pride in certain things if it's going to be serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And every other trait, you shouldn't be too, you have to be generous, but don't be generous to the extent that you give away what's yours. And you have to know how much you could give away without it irritating you, and so on and so forth. So the person has to know, a midah is something that has to be measured. So when they come along and they say, we saw the people there are anshe midos, right? So on the one level, it means that they're people of physical stature, physical height. But at another level, the commentaries say what they mean is these are people who are midos. They're people who are well measured out, well thought out, well measured out. And yet we saw that it's a land where people are dying. So it can't be that people are dying because they're sinners, because they're anshe midos. They're good people. They're anshe midos, which is a big men of good midos, people of midos. So again, this is an insidious way of saying, and if there is plague in the land, if people are dying, they're not dying because of their sins. They're dying because the land is inherently a bad land. That's part of their lashon hara. That's part of their lashon hara. They're trying to tell you, listen, the people don't deserve to die, which itself is a chutzpah, because we're talking about the Canaanites, who were the most morally corrupt people. And when it came to idol worship, you had two countries, two places that were the source of a various form of corruption. Egypt was considered the source of immorality. They were idol worshippers as well, but their specialty was immorality. The Canaanites were idol worshippers. They were also immoral. Their specialty was idol worship. So these are people who are morally corrupt. So how had a chutzpah to come along and say they're anshe midos, that they're good people? That itself is a chutzpah. But underlying it is the attempt to show that in spite of being good people, they're still dying, which obviously means that there's something inherently wrong with the land. That's what it means that the people are anshe midos. The people are people who are inherently good, and that's part of their slander on the land. Okay, now we're on page 802 for anybody who came in. We're on page 802. Now take a look at one more pasuk. Then they make their last complaint, pasuk 33 on page 802. Vishamra inu es hanefilim b'nei anak. We saw the Nephilim, who are the descendants of the giants, min ha-Nephilim. Vanehi, Nephilim is just the name of a certain group of people. They're the giants. Vanehi be'einenu kachagavim. We were in our eyes as grasshoppers. V'chein hayinu be'eineihem, and that's how we appeared in their eyes as well. In other words, they are so big that we look like grasshoppers. So Rashi says they heard them saying, well, there are ants in the vineyard. The commentaries talk about why the discrepancy, why right, according to some, that the Rashi that we have, Rashi says that we saw ourselves as ants, is actually not an accurate transmission of Rashi. Rashi in the original says grasshoppers too. Whatever it is, it has to do with the text of Rashi. So there's a classic insight into human nature over here. This is a very important lesson for us. You'll notice they don't say, we were in their eyes as grasshoppers. What do they say? We saw ourselves as grasshoppers, and that's how they saw us. Okay, so there is a classic insight into human nature over here. Again, we are humans, and therefore we are a product of human nature. In life in general, if you see yourself as a grasshopper, other people see you as a grasshopper too. So you see yourself as little, other people see you as little also. That means that we have to draw a very, very strong, very, very tricky balance in our life. On the one hand, don't be haughty, don't be cocky, don't be arrogant. But if you see yourself as puny, other people see you as puny as well. I mean, if you're going for a job interview, and you come into the job interview and you tell the guy, listen, I'm really not good for much, because I'm really not worth much. So that's how the guy's going to see you. He's going to see you as not worth. So it's a very tricky balance between being confident of your abilities, conveying that you have abilities and you're confident of your abilities. On the other hand, not coming across as haughty and arrogant. So that's a very tricky thing in life. That you want to convey confidence, especially if a job interview or wherever you're trying to qualify for. On the other hand, you don't want to come across as being haughty and arrogant. It's an interesting thing because the Gemara says a haughty person, an arrogant person, nobody could stand him, even his own family members. Nobody could stand an arrogant person. Even your own family member can't stand you when you're haughty. I heard once a story about a guy won the Academy Award. He won an Oscar. I forget, one of the actors won an Oscar. So, he was all excited about it. He came home, and he took his trophy. The family said, "Yasher Koyach, congratulations, you won the Oscar." And he was doing a lot of talking about how prestigious this is, and this, that, and the other. And then he takes his trophy, the Oscar, and he puts it right in a very prominent place on the fireplace. Puts a very prominent place, and puts it, measures out right in the living room over there where everybody sees his Oscar. He goes to sleep for the night. The next morning he sleeps late. He comes down and he sees on the fireplace right next to his trophy, there's his father's bowling trophy, there's his younger brother's Little League trophy, and his mother's the mother's trophy for cooking, and somebody's goal. All the other trophies in the family are up there with the Oscar, which was the family's way of, hey, let's keep it in a proper perspective. You're one of us. Yeah, you're good at that, but we're good at this, and I'm good at this, and he's good at this. So keep it all in proper perspective. This is the guy himself wrote that, which is very good, especially if people in the family have trophies. So on the one hand, you have to, if you don't have them, so just go to the store and buy them. You can buy any trophy you want. I know that somebody had shown me a baseball. An autograph from Joe DiMaggio and Ted Williams, and an old baseball, Joe DiMaggio, Ted Williams, and Ellie Reynolds. All the Gedalim over there. He's got it. And then the guy said, yeah, he wrote it himself. He just wrote the autographs himself. So people think that he's got a ball that's autographed by Joe DiMaggio. Nobody suspects you're going to do such a thing. So you go out and buy a trophy. You can buy trophies. You can buy anything you want. Buy I'm number one. Put it on your shirt. You could do that. Nobody likes a haughty person. Nobody likes an arrogant person. On the other hand, you have to learn how to convey. So in a home, you have to convey confidence to your wife. You don't want your wife to see you as a pipsqueak. You don't want your woman wants a husband that she could look up to. On the other hand, it doesn't mean you have to walk around flaunting it. But you have. It's a very tricky thing. So the Torah is telling you over here, of course they saw you as grasshoppers because you saw yourself as grasshopper. You went in there with an inferiority complex. Everybody sees you as inferior. You have to be able to project a certain level of confidence. It's a very fine line. It's a very fine line between where you cross the line from confidence and cross into haughty. A very fine line. A very fine line. Okay. Now let's go to the next part. There's a remarkable idea here which you should take with you. Take a look at Perek Yud Daled, Pasuk Chaf Daled. It's on page 806. Share with you an idea here, an earth-shattering idea. Really one of the most powerful ideas that I've ever heard in Chumash that affects you in many areas of life. So God is saying, God comes over and he sentences the Jewish people and he says, listen, they're not going into the land, they're going to be punished for the sin of the Meraglim, they're not going to go into the land, and so on and so forth. The Kodesh Baruch Hu gives the entire punishment here. Now comes along, and then he says like this, Ve'avdi, 4 lines from the bottom, Ve'avdi Kalev, my servant Kalev, Ekev Haisa Ruach Acheres Imo, since he had a different attitude, Vayamale Acharai, and he was loyal, he followed me loyally, Vaviosi Veloretz Asher Boshama, I will bring him to the land Vizaro Yorishana, and his offspring will inherit it. In other words, Kalev is going to go into Eretz Yisrael, he's going to get a portion of the land of Israel. Why? Because of what Kalev did. Now, I want to ask you a question. Let's go back to what happened. The spies come and they say, oh, we're in trouble. Kalev says, no, 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 we could go into the land. And then the spies say, no, 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 we can't. It's a land that consumes the inhabitants. And then the Jewish people start crying, and God punishes the Jewish people. You're going to remain in the desert for 40 years. Okay, so let me ask you a question. What did Kalev accomplish? What did Kalev accomplish?
That he's going to Israel.
He's going to go into Eretz Yisrael. He's going to go. Well, what about the spies? He said he's going to go. He's going to go into the land of Israel. But what did he accomplish in what he had attempted to do? Remember, he was attempting to convince the people. He was attempting to take a positive approach. What did Kalev accomplish in concrete terms? Page 806. What did Kalev accomplish in concrete terms? We would see he accomplished nothing, right? He accomplished nothing. So, I mean, that's a pretty good reward for effort. We do get rewarded for effort in Torah. Torah is the only area where you get rewarded for effort. If you try to do a mitzvah and something stops you, circumstances beyond your control, or if you try to learn Torah, you try to figure out a Tosfos and you don't figure out, you don't succeed, what do you call it? You get rewarded anyway for the effort. And rarely in life do we find that you get rewarded for effort. If your boss tells you, if you're a truck driver and your boss tells you to drive the stuff cross country, and you get stopped by there's a hurricane or there's your truck goes off the road and everything else, the boss is going to pat you on the shoulder and say, well, good try, Israel, thanks for trying to bring the stuff cross country. I expect the stuff delivered. I don't want to hear about problems. I want to see results. And in most offices in the world, if you're working on a project, the boss, if it was up to him, he could care less how long it takes you. If it's a good project and it makes some money, you're going to get paid. I don't care how hard you worked at it. And if you work hard at it, but it flops, then the boss is going to be disappointed. In Torah, it doesn't work that way. If you make an effort, you get rewarded. That's part of the benefit over here. You get reward. If you build a sukkah, you get reward for the building of the sukkah, then you get reward for sitting in the sukkah, because it's part of the effort. So it could be you get paid by the hour, but the boss wants to see results. In Torah, you get paid for the effort. You get paid for the effort. Do the best you can, you get paid for the effort. However, Kalev is getting an exorbitant reward over here. He's getting a tremendous reward for what would seem to be only effort in that concrete accomplishment. So one of the commentators, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein Zatzal, he says, it's unlikely that this reward was for effort alone. But if that still begs the question, then what did he accomplish? Now pay attention carefully. A very remarkable idea. Imagine there's a guy hooked up to a machine in the hospital. The guy's hooked up to a life support system. And the family says, look, what's life worth at that stage? It's not worth it. There's no quality of life. You may as well unhook him. I mean, quality of life is a very, what do you call it? If you're gonna unhook people for quality of life, then you have to unhook all of Cleveland. Once you get the quality of life, it's a very, may as well unhook the entire Congo, because quality of life isn't very good over there. Once you get the quality of life, so it's always other, why don't you ask the person himself, before you go in and unhook him. Okay, so the Torah's attitude is you can't unhook somebody from a machine. Whether or not you have to hook them up originally, there's room. Halachically, it's complicated, and you need an absolute halachic authority before making that decision. Once somebody is hooked up to a machine, you cannot turn off a machine. You can't unhook over the machine. That's according to all opinions. So imagine the family says, well, no, grandpa or pa or whoever it is that's got a lot of money and they can't wait for him to die. Unhook him. We want you to unhook and pull him off the machine. So the doctor goes over, and he's about to pull the plug on the machine, and you happen to be walking through the halls of the hospital, and you see what the doctor is about to murder this guy. So you grab the doctor's hand, and you keep his hand off the plug. And the doctor finally gets his hand loose after a minute, and he manages to pull the plug, and he kills the guy. He murders him. Okay. I never understood, by the way, this parenthetical. Why does the doctor pull the plug? Why'd you pull the plug? Get the approval of the doctor. Why don't the family members do the honors? I mean, after all, you're doing them a favor because of the lack of quality of life. So why should the doctor? That's not a medical treatment. That's not a medical treatment. Just get the doctor to sign a form. Yeah, you've agreed to terminate his life, and we honor you, the oldest son, to go and pull the plug. I mean, isn't that the logical way it should be done? Here, the wife, you can do it. Get on with your life over there. Is that makes so much sense? Why should the doctor do it? The doctor's there to cure him, not to kill him. It doesn't say in his medical degree, yeah, he's qualified to murder. Why don't you be covered with the murder? Okay, that's my own parenthetical question. So comes along the doctor, he's about to pull the plug, and you manage to get your hand on his hand, you keep him off the plug for a minute. Then he gets his hand loose and he pulls the plug. Did you accomplish anything at that moment? Oh, yes, you did. Oh, yes, you did. You kept him alive for another minute. You kept him alive for another minute. It wasn't just effort. It wasn't just effort. Effort would be that as you reach for the doctor's hand, he just brushes you off and it doesn't restrain him at all and he pulls the plug. That's effort. But if you kept his hand off, you'd agree with me, you kept his hand off for an hour, did you accomplish something? If you kept his hand off for a day, did you accomplish something? So if you kept his hand off for a minute, you accomplished something as well. It's called in the Gemara Chaye Shah. Chaye Shah means even a brief period of time. You kept him alive for another minute. Another minute of life is another minute of life. Okay. Now, in the world of the spiritual, what we call the Ruchni, imagine the following. A guy, totally secular, comes to your house for Shabbos. He has a great Shabbos. He's sitting at with your family, makes kiddush, makes brachas, he benches, and he's really interested in Judaism, and he likes this whole idea of a family being together, and the 17-year-old kids are sitting around the table instead of out selling crack, and he's all very impressed by the entire system over. Everybody's around together, and everybody, husband and wife actually seem to like each other, and or at least they put on a good show. And he says, hey, it's family unity. This is great. I think I want to be religious too. And he's really inspired. And he leaves your house, and you see him 10 years later, and he's still got the same earring and the same two-toned hair and the same, he still doesn't wear a shirt. Whatever it is, 10 years later, he hasn't moved religiously at all. He hasn't moved religiously one iota. Was that Shabbos wasted? Oh, what a waste. We thought we'd hook another fish. And, he seemed so interested in what a waste. Gentlemen, it was never wasted. Because regardless of what he does after that Shabbos, during that Shabbos, there's something called the same way the physical body has another minute of life for the physical. You've added life. There is what's called Chaye Shah of the Nefesh. You've kept his soul alive. His soul accomplished something in that minute. And the way God grades things in the world to come, we think, well, God takes the final package and that's it. There's an infinite judgment up there. And for those few moments that he did tshuva, for those few moments that he thought he wants to be a good Jew and he made brachas, he's going to be rewarded for that. That's good for his soul. So what happened to the Jewish people? Kalev, the spies come in and say, ooh, bad land, can't go into the land. And at that moment, all the Jewish people go, ooh, which is an Aveira. It's a sin because they've lost faith in God. God said it's good, and they're all of a sudden fetching, at least inwardly. That right there, you have taken a step backwards. Comes along Kalev and says, no, we can do it. To the point that Kalev says, oh, we can do it. At least some of the people took a step forward and say, you know what, God can do it for us. At least temporarily, at least momentarily. So at that moment, they've done tshuva. Then they step back again. At that moment, they backtrack because then the spies say, no, it's a land that's going to consume. It consumes all the inhabitants. We're dead meat. And the people start crying. God says, okay, you're all getting punished. But there was a few moments there where they did tshuva. That's not effort, that's concrete accomplishment. For that concrete accomplishment, Kalev gets the massive reward that he gets in the land of Israel. You get a portion in the land of Israel, and it's going to go to your children as well. This is extremely important, gentlemen, because those of you who are going to be educators in any way, teachers with your own students, children, doesn't matter who. Sometimes, you'd like to influence, you come home from Or Sameach, and you're all rah-rah, frum, and you only speak Aramaic, and you want to affect your brother, who about the only spiritual thing that he does is a bottle of vodka. That's as far as he gets when it comes to spirits. And you would decide you're going to save him from eternal damnation, and with all good intentions, and you even buy him a book. That's why everybody buys their younger brother a book on Judaism, which is the last thing he's interested. He's much more interested in an iPod or something like that, and you buy him something because you're interested in it, which parenthetically also is not the type of gift you should be buying him. How would you like him to buy you a birthday gift for something he's interested in? Right, so you have a brother who's studying ancient Japanese art, right? And so he buys you a beautiful ancient Japanese art painting, which you don't even know which way to turn it, right? How would you like that? What is this? Hey, a pagoda. Yeah, we'll turn it upside down. I know it's not a pagoda. It's actually a horse. It's a Japanese. Oh, I was looking at the wrong way. How would you like an ancient? That's ridiculous. You got another brother who's a literature major in college. So he buys you. Hey, I got some light reading for you. Here's Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, just what you'd like. Oh great. I have my table is out of balance. I need something to wedge under the leg over there. What are you buying me a Dostoevsky? I'm into baseball. Buy me a baseball card. Buy me a glove. Buy me a beer. Anything but Dostoevsky. So what are you buying him? Okay, so you bought him a big book of Judaism. You want it, and your brother might take an interest. Your brother's taking an interest. Hey, this is really interesting. And then you come back home after a year and your brother's a bigger hedonist than he was before you left because he's already just entered his freshman year in Arizona State University. Okay, but for those few moments that there was movement, you accomplished something. Now, I'm not talking about whether you should try to accomplish something. That's a different subject, and generally you should not. The best way to accomplish anything with your brother or your father or your relatives when it comes to religion is take them out to a restaurant and pay for the meal. That's the best thing you could possibly do. Because when the nature of people in religion is, that's a mistake Baalei Teshuvas make, because Baalei Teshuvas get all fired up, want to save everybody around them, and then what happens is you end up turning people off, because here they're trying to have a normal conversation with you, and all you're talking about is Gehenna. And that's not something they want to hear about, and it's not something you should be talking about. And it sounds like that's not your job, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. You come home from yeshiva, and your father's doing something. You say, Dad, if you turn on that light switch, you're gonna burn. That's not. First of all, he isn't, because it's Tuesday. You're allowed to turn on light switches on Tuesday, but you're all fired up. Second of all, even if it's Shabbos, your father's not interested in hearing from you, and that's not your job. That's not your job. You're not responsible for them. You're not responsible. And the best thing you can do is you can go back from yeshiva and do the dishes for your mother and wash your dad's car without being begged and asked and pleaded. And then your parents are going to look at you and say, I don't know what he did in yeshiva. They made a mensch out of him. You're going back to that cult. Right? Because that they like, because they see you became a better person. Therefore, the best thing you could buy, the best gift for your father is a set of golf clubs, and the best gift for your mother is to do the dishes and behave like a mensch and don't talk about Yiddishkeit. And if they ask you a question, then you can answer very briefly. Your father says, why did you, father finally gets there, why'd you just wash your hands? I saw you wash your hands with the cup. Why? Oh, nothing, Dad. It just has to do with evil spirits. Nothing. Can I have the salad, please? Just play down. The more you downplay it, the more they're likely to get curious. The more you're rah-rah, Dad, you touched your hair, you better wash your hands, or your fingers are going to fall off. Nobody's interested. Nobody's interested in your play-by-play. And that's a mistake that Baalei Teshuvas classically make. Rabbi Gottlieb once told me he had a guy who, a kid who was driving his father nuts. And every time he went home, there was a fight. The kid was all rah-rah Judaism. And finally, on one trip, the kid decided, as much as he hates golf, he's going to go golfing with his father. So he played golf. For some reason, the kid hated playing golf. He went golfing with his father, and then on the way back, as he was getting on the plane on the way back to Israel, his father said, Mike, I want to tell you something. I respect you. Of course he respects him, because he didn't impose it on his father, and he shows his father he's interested in his world. Baalei Teshuvas sometimes say, what am I going to talk to my family about? Well, what did you ever talk to them about? What did you ever talk to them about? You talked about baseball, you talked about beer. That's what you talked about. So just talk about baseball and beer. What's the problem? Who said just because you put on your yarmulke? They also you have to talk about the parsha. Right? I mean, where did he get that from? Who told you that? And that's where people get turned off and put off, especially when you start trying to. So the Torah is telling you, when you have disciples, let's say you are teaching somebody, and let's say there is somebody you're trying to influence who's willing to be influenced. Somebody comes to you to be influenced, and they don't move one iota religiously. But for those few moments, there was movement. Those few moments also count. That's what the Torah is teaching you. Right. Yes, Yona.
But he's still so correct. Either way. At the end of the day, whether he did or not, then the soul is cut.
That's first of all, the cutting of the soul is not your problem. Don't you walk around with the scissors. Number one. Number two, it's not your job. Number two, even the cutting of a soul. Do you know what's involved in the cutting of a soul? Yeah, how much of a soul? Do you know anything about the soul? Do you know? It's not a good connotation, but that's not your issue. Was something concrete accomplished at that moment? Yes or no? That's all. Let God take care of souls. Right? You take care of your little neshama, and let God take care of all the other neshamas. That's our job. But just realize that when a person is inspired, we see it as an all or nothing proposition. That's the mistake. The all or nothing proposition. It doesn't mean that I don't want to be misquoted here. It doesn't mean that there's some sort of dispensation. Well, the rabbi said, as long as I keep mitzvahs a little bit, then I go do averas, I'm okay because I did a few mitzvahs. No, you have to come around. That's what Yonah is saying. Eventually you have to be a Torah observant Jew. But the fact that a person has made an effort, don't write off little steps, don't write off little accomplishments either. That's what the Torah is telling you. That too is a concrete. I'm not going to get into that now, about the cutting off and everything else. I'm just telling you that too is a concrete accomplishment. Okay. Take a look at Pasuk Yudalid, Perik Yudalid, Pasuk Lamed Dalid. Now here God describes the punishment. It's on page 808. 808. There was a question that I myself had on in the wording of the text over here. There was a question that I myself had, and I finally saw one of the commentaries addresses it. He says like this. It actually starts in Pasuk Lamed Gimel. Pasuk Lamed Gimel. It's right in the middle of the page on page 808. He says like this: if you find it, please make sure the person next to you has it. Uvenechem, your children, you roim b'midbar arboim shana. Your children will be in the desert for 40 years. V'nasu es zinusechem. They will bear your iniquity. How does he translate it? They will bear your guilt. Page 808. Ad tom pigrechem amidbar, until your carcasses fall in the desert. This is God informing them that those who are alive now over the age of 20 are not going to go into the land of Israel. They're all going to die. Your children will go into the land. You're going to wander 40 years. Nobody who's 20 years old now is going to make it into the land. Only your children. You're all going to die in the desert. You're going to wander for 40 years. This is bad news. Then he says like this in the next pasuk: B'mispar hayomim asher tartem es haaretz. In the number of days which you spied the land, arboim yom, 40 days. Yom lashana, 1 day per year, 1 day per year. Tisu es avonosechem arboim shana, you will bear your iniquity for 40 days. V'yidatem es tenuasi, and you will know my, you should comprehend what happens. He can comprehend strength from you. You will know how I punish when you veer off. Now, hold for 1 second. So what does God say? Well, the spies spied for 40 days. They went through the land for 40 days, brought back a negative report. For every day that they had spied, you are going to be punished with a year of wandering in the desert. Okay? For every day they spied, you're going to be punished with a year of wandering in the desert. Now, Eliezer, you know Hebrew. How would you say, if I want to say somebody, how would you say in Hebrew, you're going to get a year for every day that you went? What would you say? For every day that you were there, you're going to get a year of punishment. What would you say? L'kol yom shana. Right? Now, would you say yom l'shana or shana l'yom? A day per year or a year per day? What would you say? A year per day. That's what it should really say. It should say shana liyom, a year per day, what does the Torah say in Pasuk Lamed Al? It says the opposite. It says yom l'shana, it says. It says you're going to fall 48, yom l'shana, 40 days, yom l'shana. That's the opposite of what's going on. A day per year, but we weren't there for a year, there were 40 days. A day per year, it should say a year per day, right? Is that the logic? Just plain meaning of the pasuk. I was wondering about that. Why does it start? It's exactly the opposite of what it means. What would you say? Anybody got an answer? So I saw one of the commentaries said like this: how did they die? How did the people die? These 40 years that the people died. So you're talking about 600,000 people have to die. You know how they died? Yes, every year on Tisha B'Av they dug graves. And all 600,000 men got into the graves. And in the morning, 15,000 people didn't get up. Imagine how they slept, the ones who did get up. That must not have been a great, it's like, am I still alive? I pinch myself, is that Gehenna or is that real life over here? Right? Imagine what that must have been like. And then 15,000 people don't arise every year, every single year, except the last year. Except the last year, Hashem let them off. Everybody arose the last year. Okay.
So there were some people from
That's what, there is a source that says that the last 15,000 didn't make it in. There's a source in the Talmud that says that, yeah. But the plain meaning is they didn't. Okay? Now, what comes out is Yom L'Shana is not referring to the punishment as not what the the what's it called? The ratio is Yom L'Shana is telling you how it's going to happen. Yom L'Shana, 1 day per year, 1 day per year is referring to how they're going to die, not what the ratio is. That's just saying there's going to be 1 day per year that the people are going to die. Right? So you think Tisha B'Av is rough nowadays. You know, just imagine what Tisha B'Av was like then. You know, I had a guy here once in the yeshiva who said to me, Rabbi, years ago, a guy said to me, we're heading towards Tisha B'Av. He says, I think we're learning the laws of Tisha B'Av. He goes, Rabbi, I really don't enjoy Tisha B'Av. I said to the guy, I can't understand why. I mean, I love fasting, especially when you get a little bit of a headache towards early afternoon and you get a little bit of lower back pain from sitting on a low bench. What's wrong with that? I mean, I'll take that any day. Well, who said you got to enjoy it? I don't enjoy Tisha B'Av. No kidding. And I don't enjoy doing dishes. So what? There's certain things in life you got to do. That's what your mother did. Your mother always tell you, if you're going to do it with a smile. Did your mother ever say that to you? If you're going to do it with a smile. Do it happily. Did your mother ever say that to you? Yeah, your mom asked you to do something. Can you do an errand for me? Grumble, grumble. Well, if you're going to do it happily. Why? Does the mother ever do everything happily? I just love I don't see any women who just whistle while they're just happy as a lark while they're doing laundry. I don't see any women doing that. Okay, and so they say it to us. So I always said to my kids, guys, got to fold laundry. You want to be happy, be happy. You don't want to be happy, don't be happy. But you got to do the laundry. I couldn't care less if you're happy. Something you got to do. Tisha B'Av. I don't enjoy Tisha B'Av. Yeah, neither do I, buddy. I got news for you, right? Okay, it's something you got to do. No, I'm a Purim man. I like Purim. Yeah, me too. Okay, you got to do Tisha B'Av. Imagine what Tisha B'Av is like for them. Yom L'Shana, 1 day per year that people are getting in the graves. That's rough stuff. And 15,000 aren't getting up. That's rough stuff, okay? That's what the Torah says. Now, look at the punishment. In Pasuk Yud Daled Lamed Zayin. Now, watch this. It's on page 808, towards the bottom of the page. Vayamusu ha'anoshim, 3 lines from the bottom. Vayamusu ha'anoshim motzi dibas ha'oretz ro'o b'magefa lifnei Hashem. The men who spread the negative report, they died in a plague before Hashem. So first of all, you know that God works mida keneged mida. God works, you get what you deserve. God works, I think in English it's called quid pro quo. What goes around, comes around. If you're a nice person, life is nice to you for the most part. If you're a nasty person, you're going to get nastied. That's the way it works. And if a guy catches his fingers in the door, chas v'shalom, he probably punched somebody, shoplifted. He did something with his hand he shouldn't have done. God works, mida keneged mida. What goes around comes around. He who burns gets burnt. That's the way it works. So I remember there was a mafia guy. I've mentioned this before. I was into the mafia when I was younger. I was thinking of it as a career choice. And there was a guy instead I became a rabbi. So there was a guy. Mafia pays better. So there was a guy named I remember a guy disappeared. He was a mobster, disappeared. Tony Big Tuna Accardo. Tony Big Tuna Accardo disappeared. I remember reading it. He disappeared. Then they found him 3 days later. They found his body in the trunk of a car. So I crumpled up in the trunk of a car. I remember as a kid, I was about 15. I was thinking, the tuna ended up in the can. Right? That was my first thought as a 15-year-old. I was into these guys. I was interested in the mafia. I was enchanting. And I guarantee you that Tony Big Tuna Accardo, he was no tzatzkala himself. I'm sure that he put plenty of people in the can too before, because, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. That's how God works. So, mida keneged mida, God hands out, dishes out punishments, measure for measure. So, what did they say about the land? They said it's an eretz ocheles yoshveh, right? That people are dying. Why are people dying? They're dying because of plague. They're dying because of the air. They're dying because of plague. So how do they die? They die in a plague. They die in a plague. But 1 second, that's only the beginning. Take a look at Rashi on Pasuk Lamed Zayin. It's in the left column. About 6 lines from the bottom of the Rashi. You find it, please show the person next to you. It says, B'magefa lifnei Hashem. Make sure the person next to you has it. B'magefa lifnei Hashem. Rashi says, how did they die? Be'osa misa hahaguna lahem. The exact death which was suitable for them. Mida keneged mida. Exactly what they deserved. Heim chatu balashon. they sinned with their tongue. So what happened to their tongue? V'nishtarbev l'shonam ad tiburam. Their tongues stretched out of their mouths all the way down to their belly buttons. V'toloim yotzim l'shonam. Worms came out of their tongues. Uboin l'soch tiburam, and entered into their belly buttons. Very, very unpleasant way to go. Right? This is the tongue and belly button disease, right? Other than there's hoof and mouth disease, this is tongue and belly button disease, right? The tongue goes all the way down, stretches all the way down to the belly, which itself is probably unpleasant. If your tongue stretch all the way down to your belly button, it's probably uncomfortable. Then worms crawl out of the tongue, which is unpleasant, and they go crawling down and into the belly. You know, I don't know exactly which Alka-Seltzer you take for that, you know, but that's, you know, it certainly sounds, you know, they say a good, put on a hot compress. Yeah, I'll bet. That's not a pleasant way to go. What happens here? What's that got to do with me to connect? Why? So first of all, right, what part of the body is the belly button? More or less the center of the body. Eretz Yisrael is the center of the earth. Certainly in the ancient world, where the ancient world was made up basically of Europe, Asia, and Africa. America was just those guys over there playing baseball. In the ancient world, it was Europe. And what's right at the meeting point between Europe, Asia, and Africa, of course? Israel. There we are, right? We're always in the news because somebody built a balcony in the West Bank, you know, so that's in the news. 200 guys are slaughtering each other in Syria, and nobody bats an eyelash, you know, but some Jew builds a balcony on the West Bank, you know, all of a sudden the whole world is on the cover of Time magazine. They got a picture of a balcony. You put a balcony, or you could put poison gas, you know, so they put the balcony up there on the way. So we're right in the center. Eretz Yisrael is not physically the center, and Eretz Yisrael is the center of attention. Oh, you spoke about the center? Then you're going to get punished right in the center. Not only that, there's actually a verse in the prophet Yechezkel where Eretz Yisrael is called Tabur Ha'oretz. It's called the Tabur. And the belly button is called the Tabur, and therefore right in go the worms from the tongue into the center of the earth. But it's even deeper than that, gentlemen. You see, what are you laughing at? Yeah, it's something you want to avoid, yeah. It's even more than that. You see, a worm, let's say you find a worm. Where is the strength of the worm? A worm, there's a measure that says he only has strength in his mouth. A worm eats away at something. Now, when one worm eats away at something, how much damage could one worm do? All right, take him a while. You get a pile of worms in there. The damage from a pile of worms is much more easily noticeable. Here you have a group of men come back from the land of Israel. Let's say it would have been one guy. So if it's one guy who says, horrible land, we can't go in there. Be quiet, that's Zalmi the kvetcher. He's the guy in shul who's always kvetching. Everybody ignores him. We've learned to ignore him. He's always kvetching about something. But when you get 10 prominent people coming back and they're all talking against the land, that creates a unified negative force which is more powerful exponentially than the individual parts it's made up of. Oh, you guys came back and started trouble as a united group? Mida keneged mida, you're going to get the worms, which as a united group could inflict a lot of damage. Even more than that. You want to hear something incredible? How many people do you need for a minyan? 10 people. Where does the Talmud derive that from?
One of the verses.
Gemara and Brises, right under the verses right over here, where God says, Ad Mosai la'eda hara hazos. How long is this Eda hara, this bad group, going to continue? So I don't. It's here in one of the psukim. Ad Mosai la'eda hara hazos, and you notice it even refers to them as this negative assembly. And so the Gemara says, well, how many men were in this negative assembly? 10. We see from here that an assembly is 10 people. And therefore you need 10 people for a minyan. I mean, isn't that a strange place to derive it from? Hey, let's daven everybody. How many men? 10. How do you know? Well, those worm guys were 10, so we got to be 10 too. I mean, isn't that a ridiculous place? Why would the Gemara learn it from here? This is the place you learn it from? I'll get to you one second. Why would the Gemara derive it from here? There's obviously a common denominator. You know what the common denominator is? Yeah?
When we're praying, we're trying to get our sins taken away. So I guess they're also in that being of wanting to ask for appeasement.
Okay, it's true.
Is it because
because it shows that you're a unified force?
Yes. You see, when you daven as an individual, you have a certain potency to your prayer. If you could lift 100 pounds and you could lift 100 pounds, why is it that the two of you together, that's your limit, yet the two of you together can lift a 300-pound stone? Because when you join forces grow exponentially. You could lift 100 and I could lift 100, but we could both lift something that's more than 200. I don't know exactly how much. But if it's more than 200 joining together, even though individually I can't lift more than 100. I mean, back in the day I was able to press 360. But in the, you don't believe that, do you? 360 grams, press 360. I couldn't even look at 360. The what do you call it? So if you could press 100, you could press 100, but the two of you together could press 250 or 300. Why? Because there's joint power. When you daven in a minyan, part of the idea of davening in a minyan is that the potency of your tefillah is not 1 multiplied by 10. It's a completely different essence. The whole group goes up together. That's a much more powerful tefillah for you, the individual. That's why it's important to start Shemona Esrei with the group. So one of the explanations, it's a little trite, but there is a lot to it. There's a lot to it. I shouldn't call it trite. It's very simplified, but this is the general idea. When you daven as an individual, you daven at home alone, so your tefillah goes up by itself, and those who stand at the gates to allow it in, they stand there and they're able to inspect that. Well, here you were daydreaming a little bit. Here you were looking at your cell phone, and here you were. I don't know about. All right, we'll put them on the back row, will you? But when you're with an entire group, the entire group is coming in. The guy's like, hey, not everybody. All right, all you go on in. The guards over there at the gate. Just let the whole group in. So your tefillah goes in with the group, and it's not inspected with a fine-tooth comb. It's got much more potency. That's the idea. That's why there's always strength in numbers. Strength in numbers. It's always good when you do it as a group. When you do it as a group. That's why trouble in school is always better when you're part of the group. You reduce your chances of individual punishment. The whole group is ditching. And that's much better. It's like, I know nobody's going to pick on me, right? Because when you do it alone, then you're more closely supervised. That's the idea. That's why it's learned from here. The same way that we see the potency in the negative, we learn from here the potency in the positive for meaning. Yeah, go ahead. What were you going?
You're the 11th person.
It doesn't matter. You should be one of the first 10, but as long as you're part of the minyan, you go up with the group. You don't get the merit of being one of the first. There is a special merit of being one of the first 10, but as long as you're part of the group, you get the merit. Somebody was going to ask a question. Again, your first name is?
Alex.
Alex, good.
My question was, so the people that died with Shelach, they were from 20 to 60.
Right.
But modern minyan is 13 to.
That's just the minyan. That has to do with what do you call? That has to do with the minyan. 20 is when you're responsible in the eyes of heaven. Even nowadays, you're responsible in the eyes of heaven. At 13, you're a mature adult, and society has to control you. So you count as a minyan and so on and so forth, but you're not fully responsible till you're 20.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't mean, yeah, I'm 19, let's go, live it up till I hit 20. No, it means that there's less accountability. It's not a dispensation. Relax. How old are you?
No, I'm actually 20.
You're 20, okay, so you're cooked anyway. Yeah, what do you say, Binyamin?
This was bugging me ever since you mentioned it.
It's bugging you? Yeah, no pun intended. Yeah, go ahead.
In verse 34, which is, I think, Lamed Gimel, or Lamed Dalet.
Lamed Dalet, yeah.
It says, like the number of days that you spied out the land, 40 days, a day for a year, a day for a year. Why does it mention that twice?
Yom L'Shana, Yom L'Shana. Good question. Why does it say it twice? I don't have an answer for you offhand. Where is it? Pasuk? Not always.
More important.
The plain meaning of a rip, it's like when the Torah says, "Most you must, he shall surely die." It says, "Most you must, he surely die." It's a way. It's certainly a way of emphasis. It's certainly the plain meaning is emphasis. That's clear. The question is, what is it over here that they wouldn't have gotten had it only said? What page is that? Don't know. I have to look it up. Good question. Good question. Okay.